Kellerman Show. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio.
What's up, nerds? The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN News, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80. And on your smart speaker, reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line, 888-SAY-ESPN. ESPN Nation is presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back, and so is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Just driving through Fansville about a week or two ago with the kids. Stopped at some fast food. Had a little bit of their Dr. Pepper. Oh, it's so good, Raj. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. Of course, I need to have the diet stuff at my age. This is the way it is. There is so much stuff going on before I even get to straight talk. First of all, we're coming off a great NFL weekend. All kinds of, exciting and weird and controversial stuff. Controversial, maybe not, but stuff to talk about. Great fight on Saturday night. Lomochenko Lomochenko, if you want to put the winner's name first. And then we got doubleheader on Monday Night Football. Dallas and Arizona is interesting enough because Andy Dalton starting instead of Dak. And what about Kyler Murray and the offense? Can they really get that back rolling again against that Dallas secondary? Is nothing to write home about. But then the Chiefs and the Bills, both coming off losses, both really needing to rebound. But it starts at 5 o'clock Eastern. Oh man, there's nothing better. There's nothing better. You turn on the TV while the kids are still doing their homework, and you got the rest of the night. But first, it's time for Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everyone wants to talk about Tom Brady beating Aaron Rodgers. Boy, Tom Brady certainly had a game. He had the kind of game that Bill Parcells would be proud of Phil Simms having in 1984. 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. I mean, if you are looking for someone to ride a defense and running game to a win, boy, Tom Brady's your guy. And that's not even an in. Cannot stay, like they couldn't do anything clean. It was penalty after penalty after penalty. And it was killing drives. And Tom Brady's chewing them out demonstratively on the sideline. And then late in the game, after Nick Foles makes a play to put him in field goal range, and then Nagy mismanages the clock. Oh, Tom Brady, he has over a minute to win the game. Misses on third, misses on fourth, and thought it was still third down, right? He puts up the 4 fingers. Now it's fourth down. Tom. But I'll say this about a Tom Brady quarterback team. You knew they weren't going to make a lot of mistakes last night. You knew yesterday was not going to be a mistake-filled game. And that's credit to Tom Brady and leadership, not just to Arians, to Tom Brady. And they played a mistake-proof game. And listen, if you have a great defense and a great defensive coordinator and a running game, because, look, if you're getting almost 5 yards a carry and 113 yards, that's a good day for any back. You can win, especially if uncharacteristically Aaron Rodgers was bad. If it's did Brady win it or Rodgers lose it? The Tampa Bay defense won it, meaning Rodgers lost it. It's the last time you remember him throwing 2 essentially consecutive pick sixes, more or less. That's a bad day for Rodgers. The pressure came. You didn't know how to deal with it. That was atypical. I wonder how much of the pressure of facing Tom Brady has to do with Rodgers screwing up. I know, NFL guys and the quarterback especially can scoff at that, right? Oh, come on, ridiculous. Come on. I don't care how much you're concentrating on the game. You think these guys aren't aware of the historical significance of a matchup? And Rodgers is the dude chasing Brady. Yeah, I believe that could get to him a little bit, but especially the defense got to him. And credit Todd Bowles because Rodgers early in that game looked sharp. It's here it comes. Who's the MVP, Rodgers or Russell Wilson? No, Rodgers is even better than Wilson. That's what you're thinking when it's 10-0. And then he throws those interceptions, and the Bucs get rolling, and they never look back. 38-10, that's a whooping. Beat the brakes off Green Bay. And here's the thing about quarterback and a coach. And they have a defense that stiffens up in the red zone. I get it. But it's not just they give up a lot of yards. They give up a lot of points, Seattle does. And Green Bay has a guy who, until yesterday, I thought was even having an even better season than Russell Wilson. And he's a higher ceiling guy to me in Aaron Rodgers. And while he doesn't have the weapons Russell Wilson has, he has weapons. Like Devontae Adams just getting back, but Devontae Adams is a really good weapon. And their running game they got it going. But they also they have a better defense in Seattle, but it's not really a good defense. You look at Tampa Bay, they were not 7-9 last year with Jameis Winston giving the other team 112 points off 30 interceptions. You knew if you just replaced him with a steady Eddie type of quarterback, you'd reverse 2 of those losses. Call it 9-7. But you replaced him with Tom Brady. Is he better than just the kind of steady Eddie quarterback? Yeah, probably. I thought the over-under for wins for the Bucs was 9.5. I think I was right to say that. Are they going to win 9 or 10? They are live in the NFC because of that defense. Tom Brady doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. He just has to be a good game manager who can make a couple of good throws you need throughout the game, which is what he is. That's a good thing to be. He's like a poor man's Ryan Tannehill, Raj. That's the compliment. Here's Aaron Rodgers after the game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good about the team, Bill. Might need to add an extra finger to the scotch, but I do feel good about the team. You know, I've played for so long. You're going to have a couple stinkers.
Who's the extra finger to the scotch? I have a suggestion. You're going to be hearing a lot of this in the media, and there's a reason for that. Odell Beckham Jr. You got to get him away from Baker Mayfield. This dude is in his prime. You know how you hear, like, this guy's not just an excellent whatever, quarterback, running back, wideout. He's a great football player. Like, for example, Rob Gronkowski's a great football player. Not, like, he can block, he can catch, he can do whatever you need him to do. Odell Beckham's a great football player. He does every single thing you want a guy to do. And he does it at a very high level. By the way, besides being able to throw a spiral with his offhand 50 yards, right? Like, you don't need him to do that, but he can do it. Besides hitting home runs out of, like, Yankee Stadium, if you need it, like, in batting practice, he could do that too, right? Besides being able to kick field goals if you really need him to, he could do that too. He's just an insane athlete. But he's in his prime, and he's matured. If you've talked to Odell through the years, and I have, he was always a guy who wore his heart on his sleeve. He was a very passionate kind of player. And people misunderstood that at first. But if you talk to his teammates, by and large, they really like him, and they liked him on the Giants. And, like, even 4 targets yesterday, Odell will be all right with 4 targets if they're winning. If you're targeting him 4 times because he's bracketed all the time and you got a lot of other ballers on the team and you're moving the chains, Odell gets that, especially nowadays. He always did, but especially nowadays. Like, talking to him several years ago, you heard a good kid who wanted to be great and was very, as I said, like, wore his heart on his sleeve. Now, you hear a dude who's been around for a while. You hear more of a veteran talking when you talk to him. They're wasting his prime. Gettleman sent him to Cleveland. It felt like punishment, right? They gave him the big contract in New York. We're never going to trade him. Then you trade him, eat $20 million in dead cap money, and you trade him to Cleveland. But you're like, oh, okay, but Baker can ball. No, he can't. Baker's not a baller. He's not a baller. He's not the worst guy in the world. He's all right. And by the way, I'm sitting here saying 2.5 years, first overall pick, has had 4 different head coaches. You got to cut him some slack. It's going to make him look worse than he really is. Here's a comp, Alex Smith, first overall pick. New head coach after new head coach after new offensive coordinator, so he looked like a bust. But when he had some stability, what you saw from Alex Smith is, he's a good quarterback. Only thing Alex Smith didn't really have is a strong arm. I think Baker's arm strength is better than Alex Smith's, right? But he's not really as good an overall quarterback as Alex Smith was. And furthermore, here's the thing. Not to take a shot at Alex Smith, you want more than Alex Smith. If you draft number 1 overall and you took Alex Smith, it's not that it's a bust, but you didn't do a good enough job. Forget about the fact that Aaron Rodgers was taken 23rd or whatever. Not a good enough job. And that's the thing about Baker Mayfield. He's a not as good version of Alex Smith, even if like you take away the coaching, and let's say he has stability to coaching, I think it'd be a solid quarterback. Is that enough? When you draft first overall, you're looking for a baller. That's not who this guy is. He's a guy. He's just a guy, a jag. Odell. Free Odell. When Aaron Rodgers says that maybe what did he say? We need another finger to the scotch. That Odell Beckham Jr. You put him on Green Bay, even with Green Bay's defensive problems. Oh my God, that was Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. I didn't even get into the Pittsburgh defense. That deserves some credit too. Marcus Spears on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Roger, you sure this is Marcus and not Mark Spears? Your debacle from last week.
You just got to wait and see. Surprises on the Kellerman Show.
Marcus.
What's up, my brother?
Oh, you got the right Spears. You got the right Mark Spears. It's Marcus Spears.
What's up, man?
What's going on, Marcus? Marcus, so here's the thing about – let's start with Baker Mayfield. I'm saying, and you hear a lot of it in the media, like trade Odell Beckham Jr. This dude deserves better than this. Baker Mayfield's not the worst player in the world. He's kind of a starting-ish caliber quarterback, but he ain't it. He ain't it in Cleveland, Marcus. What are your thoughts about Baker Mayfield?
Oh, finally y'all see he ain't it. Okay.
Yep.
Max,
right.
how long I've been telling you this, man? Seriously.
A while.
I started last year saying this, man. It is not, and I felt like it was just low-hanging fruit to continue to beat Baker up, and to allow the guy to have his shine and glory based on what Cleveland was doing. The city deserved to have those wins that they had, and they're going to get a few more, and it was just a good time. But Kevin Stefanski clearly took the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands, man. Like, if anybody watching football thought that Baker Mayfield was the reason that the Cleveland Browns were winning, that's because they wanted some way to justify their thoughts about Baker being an elite quarterback. Look, Max, the bottom line is this, bro. He's an average to below average quarterback. That's just who he is. Like, I wish he wasn't, because he was taken first overall, and he'll be highly scrutinized, and there'll be things that come along with that honestly shouldn't even be his fault, because I'm still a little perplexed on how evaluators missed out on the fact that Baker Mayfield was just an average guy. Like,
I thought he was going to be really good, because if you play Lincoln Riley Big 12 offense, your stats are inflated.
Man, y'all got caught up on this walk-on, chip on your shoulder. He did this at Oklahoma. Who don't do that at Oklahoma, bro? Like, who hadn't been a prolific passer at Oklahoma? These dudes sent Jalen Hurts, who Alabama said couldn't even start, to the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
No,
but everybody wanted.
I have a lot of stuff to listen.
Yeah.
I got a lot of stuff to talk to you about. Let's move on. Baker's no good. I mean, like he's not the worst either, but he ain't it. He ain't it. Free Odell Beckham Jr. Send him to Green Bay. Let's see something interesting. Marcus, I want to get on to some other stuff, and this is like a pet issue of mine, the New York Giants, and I'm going to talk about it later in the show. But Joe Judge and Jason Garrett punt from the Washington 38, up 13-10 against the winless Washington team. Mm-hmm. And there's something called a surrender index. And it was according to the surrender index, that was one of the most cowardly moves by a coach offensive coordinator. 96th percentile most cowardly in over a decade. Right. So this is what I want to ask you, because this is like a pet issue of mine. A lot of coaches in the NFL, you hear a lot of talk about personal responsibility and accountability and courage and all this. Most of these dudes are cowards when it comes down to their play calling and their decision making. They act as though they're so afraid of the negative outcome that they're afraid to take a chance because of criticism afterward. When you think about it's 4th and 2 on the opponent's 38 and you're up a field goal and the opponent is winless, and you punt, what you're saying is not only do you not trust your offense to pick up 2 yards on the down, but you don't trust your defense to give them a slightly shorter field. right? Like, what is your why are so many coaches in the NFL? Why do they talk the talk, but when it comes time to walking the walk, they ask their players to do, they cop out with choices like this?
Because, Max, listen, yesterday I got excoriated for saying that Romeo Crennel made the right decision, right? And the bottom line is this, man. When you have the opportunity to win a game, win it. Like,
right.
Don't be the guy that's trying to think in the context of, we gonna hope or wish that this thing go our way, regardless of what we know about ourselves, right? Romeo Crennel.
But the Crennel decision's something different, isn't it, Marcus? Like, I didn't really understand that because I'm thinking.
What I'm saying is, you talking about the psyche of the Giants, and I'm trying to explain why Romeo Crennel went for a 9-point lead as opposed to an 8-point lead. There's some coaching
to put him away.
There's some coaching in that as well, but there's also this mindset like. Yeah, I've watched this offense go down the field on my team all game long. Let me try to win the game because more than likely we're going to give up a touchdown. Look at the time left on the clock. I'm trying to put this out.
Right. In other words, he's not scared to try to win. He's willing to risk losing to try to win.
Period.
Yeah, I like that too.
So
I disagreed with that decision. Let me just be clear. I disagree with the decision because they would have had to score a touchdown and convert two just to send it into overtime. So to me, there is where you just go, you just kick the extra point. But I do like your point. I don't like to criticize coaches for having the guts to try to win and not coaching scared, like Joe Judge did yesterday.
I'm not doing that. So when you bring up Joe Judge and what they decided to do, we always there's this idea that I'm sending a message to my team, but it really is that. Because what it boils down to is, like Romeo Crennel and his decision, I'm trusting you to execute. And I know that if we have success on this will not only build our relationship as far as players-coach, but it also make you more confident in doing your job, right? Yesterday with the call that Ron Rivera made in the game, right? We can go to that one. We're talking about the game, like Kyle Allen. Run the football in. Execute the play. Or you play this play like it's the last play of the season and you need this to win a Super Bowl. Because that's what...
Marcus, one more because we're running out of time, and I want to get to one more kind of pet point of mine and bounce it off you. I tried to school Dan Orlovsky today about why Carson Wentz, he's not the reason they're losing, but, brother, he's got to be the reason they win. He's not a second-year quarterback on a rookie deal. Yeah. They traded up in the draft to get him. He's in his 5th season. He has $100+ million guaranteed. Because of that, their resources are limited, what they can put around quarterback in the draft. Haven't you been saying that?
Well, it was. You know what, Max? I did originally come out, and I felt that way, and I still feel that way. He was the number 1 overall pick, but I wouldn't have taken him as the number 1 overall pick. I like Baker, but what I've always said is unless he's Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Bledsoe, some of those guys, it's probably Andrew Luck, Cam Newton. Baker Mayfield isn't going to dominate the NFL like those guys did at that position. Mm-hmm. He's more of a don't screw it up, build a team around you, quarterback, and let you be efficient where you can be 10 of 17 for 200 yards, a touchdown on the ground and a touchdown in the air, and we're going to keep it moving. That's who Baker Mayfield was, and that's who Baker Mayfield is. And so when you start to – like I said to you this morning about Tom Brady could air it out if I need him to. But I'm not asking him to do that. What happened with the Cleveland Browns is they selected him number 1 overall because they got caught up in the hype. And they're no longer there because of those things. And if this staff and Kevin Stefanski would have never taken him number 1 overall over Sam Darnold or Josh Allen or any of these other quarterbacks that was available. I promise you they wouldn't have. But the Cleveland Browns did. And when they did it, they didn't do it with a message of we're going to allow him to be a guy who is a really good manager, and that's it. If they would have taken him and let him be that, then we wouldn't have any arguments. But they took him thinking he's going to air the ball out 50 times a game. So they didn't really even have a plan how to utilize him when they drafted him.
Yeah, I think what the lesson is to me, like very rarely does it work out that you take a quarterback who just gives you the right feeling, and it's a good enough reason to take him. Like Eli Manning got selected 1 overall because of the name. Otherwise, he's a top pick, but he may not go 1 overall. But Eli delivered in 2 Super Bowls. Normally, that's not the way it works. Normally, if you reach for a guy like Mark Sanchez because he gives you a good feeling, that's a mistake. He needs to be big enough, strong enough, fast enough, have a good enough arm, put up the numbers in college, be accurate enough. In other words, Baker,
you can't argue,
he had the numbers because he was playing in that Lincoln Riley offense.
Max, you can't argue with the Jets taking Mark Sanchez because they didn't take Mark Sanchez for him to throw the ball 50 times a game. What they took Mark Sanchez for is exactly what Tannehill is doing in Tennessee. The problem is Mark Sanchez, when they allowed him to throw the football, he turned it over. And so in New York, he became somewhat the joke. But you can't argue with his first several years as a quarterback that he quarterbacked his team to the AFC Championship game, even though most people will say, well, that was the defense. That was the defense. Yes, that was the defense, but he didn't screw it up. He didn't start
my point
it
is
up
this.
till later on.
You can if you need a game manager, it's not a dirty word, but if you need a game manager, probably not with the 5th overall pick. You could find that without shooting the 5th overall pick on it. By the way, you bring up the Jets.
But he was supposed to be able to deliver when they needed him to deliver, not just a game manager.
Mm-hmm.
He was, when.
Yep. Yeah. There's a difference. A game manager who's big on 3rd down. Like Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, early in their careers, those were game managers with great defenses who were big on 3rd down, who developed into great quarterbacks. You don't have to develop into a great quarterback, but you need to be able to be big on 3rd down and otherwise limit the mistakes. What do you think of, look, the guy, I was surprised that Baker went 1 overall, though at the time I thought it was the right pick, because Sam Darnold checked more boxes. Usually GMs are risk averse, and they're like, I don't want to take Baker because he's short, and then if it doesn't work out, they're going to second guess me. So they take Darnold because Darnold didn't have any boxes unchecked. He's mobile. He has an arm. He has leadership qualities. He's tall. Like he drank the Kool-Aid in terms of the football talk. Like he doesn't have to stop to think about his answer to give you a PC answer. He believes in it, and just it comes right out of him. Check, 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 check. What do you think about Sam Darnold right now? A lot of people talking about the Jets probably going to have the worst record in football, drafting Trevor Lawerence. Where are you on that?
I don't really like them drafting Trevor Lawerence, and it's not because I don't like Trevor Lawerence. It's because I think they got a quarterback already. They need a new head coach to service so that their quarterback can be serviced and service the Jets and the fan base the right way. A lot of people think they need a quarterback. I don't believe that. I think they need a new head coach and players around them. I'd take that 1st overall pick, and I'd shop that thing for several number 1s and 2s and players to be named later. You name it, that's what I would do. I would Dallas Cowboy Herschel Walker that number 1 overall pick.
But now wait a minute, Key. You may be right about that. How much of this, Keyshawn Johnson, is SC? You guys at SC, you take care of each other. If it's Mark Sanchez, if it's Sam Darnold, Keyshawn Johnson, boy, you take care of your guys. How much of it is that, Key?
But it's zero. It has zero to do with it. Do you watch football? Do you see what they got? They don't have anything. You expect for this guy to play under a defensive-minded head coach and do well, that in Todd Bowles, which was a disaster. Jeremy Bates was his offensive coordinator. You know where Jeremy Bates were prior to him being the OC in New York. Do you know where he was at?
Where?
He was in the mountains, like literally in the mountains living, like in Wyoming or Montana or something like that, like just chilling in a cabin for like several years. He was out
Getting
of football.
that good.
Gets $89 million a year later. Like, seriously.
All right, Key. I'm actually here's the thing. I wouldn't give up on Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold has a chance to be good.
You just said that Sam Darnold. No, not you. I'm talking about the Jets. And they just said Sam Darnold was a life changer at quarterback. You selected him 3 years ago as the number 3 overall pick and put nothing around him.
But this is what I'm asking, Key. The reason people would say move on is not because I wouldn't. Okay, let me put it this way. I wouldn't say you move on from Sam Darnold because he's no good. I'm not saying that. I agree with the points you're making. What I'm saying is this, and I'm asking you, when you look at Trevor Lawerence, do you see a different kind of talent where the kind of talent where it's like whatever our game plan was or our plan was, we need to take this guy because he's just different? Is Trevor Lawerence that kind of player or not?
Not in my opinion. No, not for me to do it. I'm sorry, not for me to do it. I'd rather move my number 1 pick and build my team because Trevor Lawerence is not going to solve all the problems we have. I mentioned this earlier, and I'll mention again. If you have any knowledge about football and the Indianapolis coach when they drafted and selected Peyton Manning had Marvin Harrison already there. Trevor Lawerence, you draft him, he ain't got nobody to throw to at the Jets. They also had a guy named Marshall Faulk before they got Adrian James. Do you see any Marshall Faulks or Adrian James in that backfield? They also had.
I don't see any Marshall Faulks in the backfield.
They had Terry Glenn on the offensive line. Okay.
Actually, Key, I think Marshall Faulk might be on the Jets right now. I have to look at that. I think Marshall Faulk is in the backfield, as a matter of fact.
What I'm saying is they had some pieces in place in Indianapolis, even though they struggled Peyton's first year. But they had some pieces to build on. The Jets ain't got no pieces.
All right, look, you've convinced me. Keyshawn Johnson says it. I'm with it. The Jets, even if they pick first, you should not take Trevor Lawerence. Leave that for the Giants, Jets. You don't need Trevor Lawerence. Stay with Sam Darnold.
Trade the pick and build the roster.
Trade the pick to the – sure, trade the – matter of fact, just keep the pick and draft someone else because I'd like the Giants
to move the
sever
pick.
For Trevor. Sever for Trevor.
You better stop
trade
the
Could you think – hey, do you think the Giants get a 4th-round pick for Daniel Jones, Key?
A 4th-round pick? Why are you ready to move on from him? He's got the same.
Trevor Lawerence is available because the Jets are going to pass on him, according to you.
Same problem Sam Darnold has.
I don't care what his problem is. I've seen enough already. Like, he has some talent. I don't need the fumbles. I don't need to wait 5 years to see if he can be an okay quarterback. I want Trevor Lawerence, Keyshawn Johnson. I want Trevor Lawerence. I want to put him with Saquon Barkley, shore up the offensive line, fire Gettleman, and get this thing moving. You think, is Daniel Jones worth another 3 or 4 years of figuring this out? Yes or no?
I think the guy just got drafted a year ago. Calm down. Pump the brakes.
Can't nowadays, Key. Nowadays, not like it used to be in your day, man. Nowadays, you have 1 or 2 years to figure this out with your quarterback. In fact, year 2 is supposed to be the developmental year where you really see them take a leap. And if they don't, Can you believe this is how crazy I am, Raj? Keyshawn Johnson comes in here as the voice of reason and patience.
I mean,
Key knows a lot about
first time for everything, man. The voice of reason for you. You usually fight and argue with him, but you finally agreed with him on something. Breaking news.
I do. I totally agree with Keyshawn Johnson. The Jets should absolutely not draft Trevor Lawerence. And by the way, if Washington is drafting next, they should also pass on Trevor Lawerence. Don't give up so quick on
Waving his arms under it. He's got it. And the Los Angeles Dodgers are headed to the World Series. The Dodgers are National League champs.
The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN News, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Sometimes I'm talking so fast, I don't know if when I'm speaking is English anymore. The words, say ESPN at 76. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Los Angeles Dodgers and Tampa Bay Rays are making moves. The day before Game 1 of the World Series, ESPN Radio is your home for every pitch of the World Series. Tune in tomorrow for Game 1. of Dodgers-Rays on ESPN Radio.
Making Moves is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Build your winning team today. Go to linkedin.com/sports.
I'm going to take some calls, Raj. I'm going to take some calls. What do you think about that? Maybe I'll spend a few minutes talking about how I'll take calls and then not take them. Or should I actually take them? Cliff and Ty and Shorty in Tennessee want to talk to me? I feel like the ice cream man, Eddie Murphy, said he never stopped when he saw the kids, but he always drove that extra block. See how fast I can make these little kids run. Let's call them kids. Run. How long have people been waiting to talk to me, Raj? They're brushed with immortality. Cliff in Jersey, you're on the Max Kellerman Show. Go ahead.
Hey, Max. It seems that there's this narrative that's cropped up concerning Saturday's fight that, some of the cards were wild, arguably even ridiculous, but, the right guy won. But to me, that seems to be some especially dangerous rhetoric when you consider the history of combat sports as a whole, especially boxing, though. And I think, if anything, it really underscores...
Why dangerous?
Because I think it's underscoring the need to change the methods they use to adjudicate fight outcomes. I really do.
Agreed. This I agree with. The right guy did win. If you weren't scoring the fight, at the end of the fight, you'd say, okay, Lopez won the fight. But if you were scoring the fight, you could look down and possibly have 6 rounds to 6. The way I see the likely outcome, it's a quirk of boxing or a flaw in the scoring system, right? It's because a 12-round fight is 12 individual fights you have to score. Kind of absurd, especially since if you win a round by a small margin, it's 1 point for you. And if you win it by a big margin, it's 1 point for you. Unless the margin's ridiculous, then sometimes you'll get an extra point. It doesn't make sense. I agree. That said, look for decisive rounds. Once you take away who the A side and the B side is, who's that promoter with, who's the network want, like all that stuff, which is always throughout boxing history, often throughout boxing history, seem to influence decisions. Usually the house fighter has a big advantage on the scorecards. But take all that away. Whoever wins the most rounds decisively usually wins because the other rounds are split up, more or less, right? So in last night's fight, Saturday night's fight, Teofimo won 6 rounds decisively. He won the 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 12th decisively. You cannot give those rounds to Lomochenko. That's 6. Lomochenko won 4 rounds decisively. Lomochenko won the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th decisively. Can't give those rounds to Teo. The 2nd and the 7th were not as decisive. So if you give them both to Lomochenko, it's 6-6. If you give them both to Teo, it's 8-4. My suspicion is most people split them, not intentionally, just because the odds are some people will give one to one, one to the other, and so I'll bet you the most common score is 7-5 Teo. And that's like, if it would have been a majority decision, 8-4, 7-5, 6-6, I'd have been fine. The fact that it was unanimous, I'm fine. The fact that Julie Letterman had at 119, 111, but you know what? Even then, if one fighter's back is to you, because that's why you have 3 judges on 3 different sides of the ring. You don't have 4, so since it's not even, you won't get as many draws. But you have 3 different sides of the ring because each judge has a different angle. And I've been at fights live, ringside, where because one fighter's back was to me consistently, I did not have a good view. Go back and watch it on TV. I have a better view. So it's possible one judge in a fight where, like, some of the rounds that one of the guys was winning, I said Lomochenko won 4 rounds decisively. But if Julie had a bad angle on 3 of those rounds, or maybe she just got in the habit of giving rounds to Teo, then you could see how, or maybe Teo was doing something and she was like, his stuff is coming in with much more authority. But I agree, it was a bad card. Julie's had a lot of good cards. This one was a bad one. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Cliff just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. And by the way, is a good point. There's a flaw in the way boxing is scored. This is what you have to add. I'm going to give you a real quick lesson on how to judge a fight. This is not the official way. This is just my way, which is the best way. Every round, and it requires concentration. Start out thinking, who would I rather be in this round? So if Lopez lands 2 or 3 jabs, but they're partially deflected or whatever, you go, Lopez is up. I'd rather be Lopez. I'd rather be Lopez. But then Lomochenko lands a big left hand. You go, nope. Even though Lopez was controlling a minute of the round with his jab, but he wasn't really, that big left hand for me by Lomochenko carries the round, right? Like the second round, for example. I get that. And it's subjective because you might say two fighters might be fighting. Fighter A is the bigger puncher, you can tell. And he lands a bigger shot on fighter B than fighter B landed on fighter A. But fighter B has a better chin. So even though the shot landed with more force, it didn't do as much damage. If you ask yourself, who would you rather be? You'd rather be the fighter with the better chin because maybe the other guy didn't land as hard a punch, but it did more damage. And that's really what we're talking about. Ask yourself every round, who would you rather be? In the majority of the rounds, I'd rather be Teofimo Lopez. The judges agreed, although by a wider margin than they ought to have. And Teo won the fight, and he deserved to win. 12th round, man. A lot of, in a fight like that, when you've won 6 definitely, or won 5 definitely, and your opponent has won 4 definitely, and there are 2 in the balance, the 6th round the last round might determine the fight. It didn't, as it turned out. But in the minds of most fight fans, the fight could have been hanging on the 12th round. And Teo's father said, just box, don't worry about it, you got this fight won. That's not Teofimo Lopez. He came out and dominated the 12th